Welcome to Expert Seat, powered by OnPod Studio. Today we are receiving Tina. She's a leadership and culture expert. So let's jump right into it, Tina. How would a business owner know if they've got a toxic or a non-performant culture at the office?
It's a really good question. So you can feel it, number one.
Yes.
Number two, there are some less obvious signs. So, for example, people are backbiting at each other. There's gossip in the office. You can't get anything done. Everything takes forever. Everything's slow to move. You start losing people. Your results are going down. Your customers might start moving away. What tends to happen is business leaders look at those things and think they have a problem with their business. So they'll either restructure, they'll hire different people, they'll build new strategy, but actually all of those things are culture.
Okay.
And I always tell people that, when they get to me and they say, do you think it could be culture? The answer is always yes, because by the time they've gotten to me, they've tried everything else. They've tried re-strategizing, they've tried restructuring, they've hired new people, they've shuffled everybody around, they've done their customer targeting, they've done everything else.
Yes.
And then they get to me and say, do you think it might be the culture? And the answer is always yes.
Always.
That doesn't mean that every problem in the workplace is culture, but by the time they get to me, the answer to that question is that culture is always yes.
Okay. And what are some things that a company could do in order to improve? Let's say they're a 1 out of 10. Like, it's very bad, it's toxic, there's no synergy between the players. What are some of the simple things that they could do to improve the culture at the office?
So I would start by saying toxic is like, you're right, it's a 1. It's a 1 out of 10. Very few workplace cultures are actually toxic.
Okay.
There are an awful lot, though, of unhealthy cultures.
Mediocre.
Verging on bad, but not toxic. Like, toxicity is, when you walk into a toxic workplace, you get bullies and there's a lot of undermining people, and it's just really not a pleasant place to be. That's toxic, but most cultures don't get to that point. Most of them are unhealthy. It's okay. Most of them are unhealthy. So the things that people can really do is, number one, pay attention to the culture right up front, which most business leaders don't. They'll dive straight into strategy and how do we grow market share? How do we increase growth? I mean, I know because I've been there. I was a senior executive, and you dive into the stuff that moves the needle on revenue or profit, whichever is your focus. And then you forget all this other stuff.
Oh, yeah.
So it starts well, but you can build profit, you can build growth, but then things start to go wrong. And it's like, oh God, the culture, I need to pay attention to the culture. So the first thing is, I would definitely pay attention to it up front. Like, feel the culture out. What's going on here? How do things get done around here? How do people interact with each other? How do they interact with customers? How quickly do they get things done? How easily did they get things done? Do people collaborate? They ask all these questions that we don't routinely ask. The second thing, I would listen to the assumptions that people make.
Okay.
The reason I say that is because assumptions in our own heads become facts.
Okay.
So when I walked in here, I'm this middle-aged British woman. Whether you wanted to or not, you made assumptions about me, and I made them about you. That's just what we do. The problem with assumptions is that almost 100% of them are wrong, because I'm making assumptions about you based on my values, my culture, my upbringing, my education, and my experience, and you did the exact same thing about me. So you have your filters.
I'm trying to think what assumptions I made.
You're probably not even aware of them, right? We make them, but the problem with assumptions is, in our minds, they're facts.
Okay.
So then we start to treat people based on the things that we perceive as facts. Okay. Our assumptions.
Yes.
So for business leaders, start listening to the assumptions that people make. And you can hear them. It's like, when you get siloed working in a workplace, you get this silo is against this silo, and you hear it. You'll hear people say things like, yeah, but they don't understand what we do. There's an assumption. So start questioning assumptions that people make, and then just simply asking, what could you assume instead?
Okay. And does a good office culture need to be built from day one, or could a train that's gone off the tracks be fixed?
It can be fixed, absolutely. Okay. The thing with culture is, whether you pay attention to it or not, it will develop.
Okay.
It's an anthropological thing. You take a bunch of humans and you stick them together, culture develops.
Okay.
It's society, right? That's how we function. So if you don't pay attention to it, it will happen anyway.
Okay.
So do you need to pay attention to it because it will happen organically? Arguably, no. But the problem is, what if it develops into something that you didn't want it to be?
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, maybe I'll talk about my experience in business. We could use this as a coaching
Sure.
session, and hopefully the listeners find value in it. So we've got 108 agents, real estate agents that work at this firm in this building, and a lot of them are high performers, but I find that there's not a lot of synergy between the different high performers. And I know there's something there where they could go to the next level if they interacted more with each other and maybe they shared goals. So, how could I build more synergy between my high performers? And when I do that, maybe it's going to bring the people that aren't performing as good to the next level. Is there things that I could implement?
Let me ask you this.
Yes.
How do you know there isn't synergy between them?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm not involved in their day to day. All I see is what I see. All I hear is what I hear. Um, yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
So I'd start there.
Yeah.
Like, find out how they work with each other,
Yes.
if they do. I mean, that's an assumption,
That's
right?
an assumption. Yeah.
That they don't work together, or they don't have
Yeah.
that kind of synergy.
Yeah.
Can it be improved? I'm sure it can.
Mm-hmm.
Is there no synergy? We don't know.
Mm-hmm.
So I would definitely start there. Observe, listen, look, see what you see, listen to what you listen to. You said you see and hear things. So what do you see and hear?
Well, we do have biweekly meetings where we try to bring value, and I know that the value is there. But people, maybe 10 or 15% of the agents show up to those. I'd love to pump up those numbers to have, 20, 25% of them attend. Maybe hosting a biweekly meeting isn't the best idea. Maybe there's other things that I could do. Even just talking about it out loud now, I'm realizing that maybe I need to do some type of social events. Maybe we need to, book a restaurant for an evening and all go out, invite the agents to socialize, and be friends outside of the office space. Does that make sense?
Yeah, you just raised a really good point, though. So it does. It makes total sense. This is important. This is a really important point. So what you just talked about, the social events, which are important, by the way, but that doesn't address culture.
Okay.
That addresses climate.
Okay.
So think of an organization like a human being, right? It's got its own personality. All organizations have their own personality, whether they're big or small. So think of the organization like a person. So the person has its personality. The personality is the culture.
Okay.
Every once in a while, that person will have a mood swing.
Okay.
That's the climate.
Okay.
Right.
And that changes.
Okay. The culture remains the same.
Okay.
The climate can change. Well, the culture can change too if you change it.
Yes.
But the climate, that mood swing. So you can pep people up with a bonus, right?
Okay.
You can give them a bonus and everybody will feel better. And then quite often leaders will say, oh, we've just improved the culture. We gave everybody a bonus. You did nothing to the culture. You just put everybody in a better mood.
Okay.
Same thing with a dinner. Same thing with a social event. So it will have an impact on people coming together and having a great time.
Yes.
The next day, they'll go back and do exactly what they did the day before.
So a bonus might be a good short-term solution, but what about performance bonuses? Are those a good idea?
Well, they are if they're collective. So
Okay.
you said there's no synergy, or there's not enough synergy between people. If you think about how you reward people, if you give everybody a performance bonus, unintentionally, you've now pitched everybody against each other.
Mm-hmm.
And then we wonder, organizations do this all the time. I used to do it, right? We say to people, the top 5% we're going to take to wherever, on a cruise in Hawaii, around Hawaii, wherever. You then pitch people against each other. So now they're competing for that top 5%.
Do you think that might help customer service?
I think if you make a collective bonus, it helps customer service.
Because I've had experiences where, you remember Future Shop?
Yeah, of course.
Best Buy?
Yeah.
So the biggest difference between those two was that Future Shop was commission-based and Best Buy is not.
Right.
As a consumer, I found that the experience was much better at Future Shop because the attendants were, ready, eager to help. At Best Buy, it's sort of like you got to look around for people and you got to chase them down. So, I'm wondering, yes, you might be pitting them against each other. Yeah. But it's good also to have common goals.
It's great to have common goals because think of we're naturally competitive people in business. We wouldn't be in sales and if we weren't competitive. It's part of the fabric of who we are and what we enjoy. But if you think about that inside an organization, when people are in competition between each other, because of the way we reward and recognize people, they are not going to share ideas. They won't share ideas. They won't share best practices because now I know something that you don't know that makes me better than you.
Okay.
I'm not going to tell you what that is.
Yeah.
Find out for yourself.
Yeah.
And it's not a conscious thing.
They don't want to lose their edge.
Precisely.
Yes.
And there's nothing wrong with having individual performance goals. But if you have a collective goal that pitches your company against a competitor, think of it that way. So we have to outperform our competitors so that we increase our market share.
Yes.
So now your competition is out there. So now it's in my best interest to share my best practices, to get more customers. Because at the end of the year, guys, if we've got 50% market share or whatever your target is, we all get to go on a Hawaiian cruise.
Oh, geez. Yeah.
All of us together.
Yeah.
And now you've just increased market share. What's better for your long-term business?
Yeah.
Short-term revenue, long-term market share.
I like that. So we could have a collective number of transactions for the year. And if this happens, then this happens.
100%.
I don't think an Hawaiian cruise is on the card.
Or whatever. That springs to mind because I went on one once, but whatever it is for you guys, whether it's an evening in a spa or something, whatever works.
Yeah, that's good. So let's switch gears and let's talk about offices or companies that have excellent culture. Do you know about a few?
Many.
Okay. Yeah, which one comes to mind when you think about the pinnacle of office culture?
So I'll use one that I've worked for, and the company is called Indivior.
Okay.
And this company, I used to be the general manager for the company in Canada. They make products for addiction medicine.
Products for addiction medicine.
Yeah, so people that are addicted to opioids.
Okay.
So it's
like methadone, stuff like that?
Yeah, methadone, oxy. All the drugs that unfortunately we have a massive opioid epidemic in Canada, which I'm sure you're aware of.
Yes.
So I was hired as the GM for that company. Is going back about 12 years now, 13 years, something like that.
Okay.
And I didn't know anything about addiction. It's not something that's in my history, and I didn't really know anything about it. I grew up in a village in England where they had more sheep than people. It's just
sounds nice.
It was lovely. But I hadn't been exposed to that. Mm-hmm. And so you're kind of thrown into this environment where you're surrounded by it. And it really got under my skin. Mm-hmm. Like it really bothered me. That's a subject for another day. But the culture of the company was unbelievable and still is.
Okay.
As far as I know, it still is.
Yeah.
They built their culture on these guiding principles, these values that everybody was expected to live by.
Okay.
And did. To the point where during meetings, you would hear people saying, one of our guiding principles, I still say our, that's how much I still feel invested.
How long were you there?
4.5 years,
okay.
5 years.
Oh, wow.
So one of the guiding principles was we put the patient at the center of every decision.
Okay.
And during a meeting, you would hear people say, yeah, but how does that affect the patient?
Yeah.
And if the answer was, it doesn't, then we don't do it. Mm-hmm. Or if it hurts the patient, not physically hurts them, but doesn't benefit them, we don't do it.
Okay.
If that decision is a shareholder decision and it's not a patient-centered decision, it's not the right decision.
Okay.
And so that culture, it was so bred into the fabric of everything that we did. There were others as well. We care enough to coach each other. Yes. So if you saw somebody doing something that wasn't helpful, didn't matter who they were, could have been the CEO who was my boss, you tell them. Mm-hmm. When you do this, I realized that you didn't intend for it to come across like that, but this is the effect it had.
Yeah, so guiding principles.
Yeah, guiding principles. They're principles that guide behavior.
I used to work at another brokerage that had a good culture in the past, Keller Williams. One of our mottos was win-win or no deal. And
that's great.
I love that.
Yeah.
So it's something that I live by today when we're talking about real estate transactions. How many guiding principles should a company have? If you've got hundreds and hundreds, I'm guessing that they get lost in the weeds.
Yeah, they do.
And how many do you think you should have in place?
No more than 6.
No more than 6.
Yeah.
Why 6? Is it
it's just a manageable number.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just this is speaking from experience,
Yeah.
if you have more than 6, they tend to get really unwieldy and people just can't get their heads around them.
Okay.
6 is the most. 5 is ideal. Any odd number is actually better than an even number.
Okay.
That's a psychology thing.
It's better?
It's better to have an odd
Okay.
number. People find odd numbers easier to remember.
Huh.
Yeah.
I wonder why that is.
But 6 is fine. I mean,
Yes.
if you have 6, it's fine. But 5, definitely no more than 6.
Okay.
It's a good number. It's manageable. You should be able to cover everything that you need to
Yes.
guide behavior in those 5 or 6 statements. And I love that one that you just said.
Yeah, win-win
Win-win or no deal.
Yeah.
That's excellent.
Yes. It's they really drilled that into us
It's crisp, it's clean, it's
I
short,
love
and
it.
it's very, when you say it, I can see what that means in my head.
Yes.
It's like if the client's suffering at my expense, then I don't do the deal.
Yeah.
They
that's
have
right.
to win too.
Yeah, that's the only way we'll do a deal.
Yeah.
We have to benefit the client. So it goes in line with what you were saying about your previous company. And can you talk about experiences with people that you've helped get from not being so good to get better? Maybe you can name their name if you want, or keep it confidential.
Yeah, I
It's up to you.
probably shouldn't name their names, so I
Okay.
won't, but
Yeah.
I can certainly talk about
Yeah.
the organizations. So there's this perception, and in the past it's been true, that changing culture is like turning an oil tanker.
Okay.
It takes forever.
Mm-hmm.
True, if you don't approach it in the right way, or if you
Okay.
don't approach it in a certain way. So yes, I've studied culture academically, but like many academics, you can't take the academic stuff and apply it to an environment and expect it to go as well as it did when you tested it in
Yeah.
a sterile environment.
Theory doesn't always translate to reality.
No, you
Okay.
don't have the control group. People are people, they're messy, and that's why I love them.
Yes.
I think that's what makes people fun, right?
Of
They're
course.
messy, and
They're
that's
all different.
interesting. We're all messy. So with organizations that I've worked with where things work really well, what I focus on heavily is assumptions.
Okay.
So I will find out what assumptions the organization is making.
Okay.
So I go in, I will do surveys, I interview people, I do questionnaires, and I find out, and I can see it's really obvious, it kind of jumps off the page at you, the assumptions, the underlying assumptions that people make about the organization. I'll give you a really good one. In the pharmaceutical industry, which is where I come
Yes.
from, there used to be, less so now, that there was an assumption that sales in a pharmaceutical industry by the medical people always thought that the salespeople were like just wanting to break rules, they're the cowboys. That's an assumption. And the salespeople would assume that the medical people just wanted to get in their way and stop them from moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
Neither is true.
Okay.
The sales guys have a job to do, and that's to sell. The medical people, their job is to ensure that everything is passed through that lens
Yes.
of being clinically relevant, of being safe, of being medically researched, regulatory, on track. So they have a critical job to do
Okay.
to keep patients safe.
Of course.
But that doesn't mean that salespeople want to hurt patients.
No.
So there are a lot of assumptions that can be made on both sides. So when you uncover assumptions, you can start to change assumptions.
Okay.
When you change assumptions with guiding principles, when you change assumptions, people start interacting in a different way.
That's interesting.
And there's one assumption I always suggest that people think, it's not easy to do, by the way, because I
Yes.
tell people this and I struggle with it. Just assume that people are doing their best with the skills and information that they have available to them.
That's wise.
Just assume that.
Yeah.
And if you do that, it's much easier to think, well, they're telling me this, I don't like what they're telling me, but they're coming at this from a perspective perhaps I don't understand.
Okay.
So I'm just going to assume they're doing their best. Now you can go back and approach them with compassion. You can still be assertive.
Yes.
Ask a bunch of questions, and then you understand. And it doesn't matter if you don't agree, because now you're having a discussion about it.
Yeah.
That's amazing for culture. And you know what? Changes like that.
And so you would recommend having an interview with some of the people in the office, asking them lots of questions.
Absolutely.
Will employees and team members give you hints on what you should be doing? Does that help when you do the interviews?
What do you mean by hints? What
Well,
you do?
I mean, let's say your office culture is not where you want it to be, and you have an interview. Would you rely on the suggestions from the team players? Is that something that usually helps?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Um,
What do you need from me?
You'd be amazed at how forthcoming people are when an outsider, this stranger that they've never met, comes into their company and says, "Tell me what it's like to work here."
Okay.
You get everything very, very quickly. They tell you a lot of things, and they'll also start to tell you what needs to change.
I guess they wouldn't be as open if it's coming from the guy or the girl that's responsible for the culture.
Definitely not.
Because no, you're great. You're doing a good job.
No, I love it here.
I love it. Yeah.
It's great. No, everything's good. It's like when I hear managers or leaders say, well, I ask people for feedback. I ask my team for feedback and they tell me I'm doing okay. Well, what else are they going to say?
Of course.
They report to you.
Yes.
Well, I think they're being honest. They are being honest. But they're also very conscious of the fact that you can fire them. Not that you would, but you could.
I could, yeah.
And so people are very much about survival and protecting themselves. So if you hire somebody from the outside to come in, if you really, truly want to get to the root of what's going on in your organization, get somebody in from the outside.
Okay.
And
this is where somebody like you comes in.
This is where somebody like me comes in.
Okay.
People talk to me. They'll tell me, number one, I don't repeat what they've told me.
Yeah.
Not in a personal nature. I'll put it into a report. Yeah. But I don't say Johnny said this and Carol said that, and never happens.
He really doesn't like you.
Yeah, he really doesn't like you. You need to change. You need to watch your back. I never do. I would never do that. But I do find out what's going on inside the organization. And after you've spoken to a number of people and you start to hear the same things over and over and over again, and people will tell me, and they're very forthcoming. I then go back with, this is what's going on. And I do a full analysis of the culture. Like, this is where you are. This is where you need to be. Because I always align culture with strategy.
Okay.
So if you're if you've got a really high growth strategy, it's no good giving you a high control culture because you can't get anything done.
Okay.
You need to move. You need to be quick. You need to be agile.
Okay.
So I'll match that with the strategy.
So let's end on that. Who would be your preferred client? Who are you looking for?
So the clients I work with are mainly science-based organizations.
Okay.
So I work with the pharmaceutical industry, hospitals, biotech. I have a number of individual clients who are physicians who've been promoted into leadership positions.
Yes.
And physicians are physicians, right? And then lead a department, and nobody's ever taught them how to lead.
Yeah.
So I have a number of clients that I work with on leadership to create a culture that drives the results that they want. So culture is a results driver. The two things aren't separated. It's not this fluffy thing over here that belongs to human resources. And I will make that point, and all these human resources people that will be listening are like, what is she talking about? But think of culture as personality, and then you delegate your personality to somebody else to change.
Okay.
Well, they can't do that. That's impossible. So I think it's a completely unreasonable thing to do, to give culture to human resources and expect them to be able to do anything with it.
Okay.
They're one department.
Yes.
Culture is created through behavior. So why is it not everybody's responsibility? So take culture out of HR. They can lead it. They can hold the mirror up, but don't hold their feet to the fire and have them change it.
When I think of an HR department, I think of payroll. I think of rules at the office. I guess culture has to be in that conversation also.
Of course, it's part of. And HR does so much more than that as well.
Course.
They're business partners, they're talent acquisition, talent development. I mean, they do so much.
Yes.
Which I do think is their domain. But to make this thing that is everybody's responsibility, that is built by everybody, one department's responsibility, that's crazy to me.
Okay.
So all that to say, I do work with science-based organizations, a lot of science-based organizations, whether it be in the private or the public sector.
Okay.
Why do I work with science-based organizations? So I'm not a scientist, but I do have a science background, and I've worked with science-based organizations my entire career, so over 30 years now. I love that kind of environment because they tend to focus on the skill, the knowledge, the deliverable, and not so much the culture.
Okay.
So that's why I love going into those organizations, because they perceive, and I'm generalizing, but culture is often perceived in those organizations as being this soft, fluffy, intangible thing. So I go in and I make it hard, tangible, and something they can actually use to drive their company forward.
Have you worked with companies outside of the science
I
industry?
have.
Okay.
Yeah, I have.
So you're
I
not
would say 90% of my clients are
90%.
science-based, but yeah, I
Okay.
absolutely work with
Is there
organizations.
any books that you would recommend on somebody that's starting its journey on learning about culture?
Yeah. Well, there's one that's coming out in the autumn of this year, and that's mine.
Nice. Good.
That's called One Assumption.
Okay.
So that's going to be out in the autumn. So keep an eye out for that one. The other two, there's one by two scientists called Cameron and Quinn.
Okay.
And they are amazing social scientists. They're like the grandchildren of organizational culture.
Okay.
So they developed a model called the Competing Values Framework, which I use in my work. It's incredible. So I would definitely read the Competing Values Framework model by Cameron and Quinn. Okay. It's amazing.
I'll get that from you after.
Okay. It's a really, really good book. The other one is Edgar Schein, who is the grandfather of organizational culture. The guy is amazing. I remember when he first connected with me on LinkedIn, it was like total hero worship for me. It's like, oh, Edgar Schein connected with me on LinkedIn. I've made it. Like I'm there. He wrote a book called, I'm trying to think of the name of it now. I think it's just called Leadership. And it's by Edgar
People
Schein.
Google their name.
Yeah, you'll see it straight away. Or Organizational Leadership. Amazing book. And I would actually read that one first. I would read the Edgar Schein one. Okay. And then I would read the Cameron and Quinn one, because a lot of Cameron and Quinn's work is based off Schein's work. Okay. So I would read them in that order.
I will take your recommendation.
Then mine.
I'll buy them both. Yes. On that topic, do you have a link to pre-order your book or
not yet?
Not yet. Okay. If you do have a link for it, send it to us.
I absolutely
will. We'll make sure to mention it here.
Thank you.
That's already 26 minutes. Wow. We're aiming for 30. So thank you so much. I got a little mini class on office culture. There's already tons of ideas that are running around in my head right now. So thank you. How do people reach out to you?
So you can contact me via my website, which is tinacantrill.com.
Yes.
So Tina, CANTRILL.com.
Yes.
Or email tina@tinacantrill.com. Or you can call me 613-795-6324.
Right on.
Or LinkedIn.
LinkedIn.
Of course.
Yeah, I'm trying to be a bit more present on LinkedIn.
It's a great platform.
Yeah, that's what I'm hearing more and more.
Yeah.
That's good. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
It's lovely. Pleasure to meet you.
Likewise.